Hey, little running gag on the Sedvipran channel. This is my third attempt. The first was 26 minutes long. The second one I thought I'll just do a part one, and my card filled up because I hadn't deleted the first attempt. Then my battery died on the third attempt. Anyways, so this is an intro vid, part one, if you will, of a two-parter. This one covering general concepts of copyright, fair use, and YouTube. In my next video, the part two, I'll be focusing on the nitty-gritty of how fair use is determined and how you can use that information to make a decision for yourself as to whether you want to contest a claim of content ID match. Okay, first of all, general concepts. No, first of all, I should start with disclaimers. I am not a lawyer. I'm not an expert in copyright law. So this is not really legal advice. If you end up in court, it's not a very good defense to say some hairy guy on YouTube said, and I'm not going to be held accountable for your decisions. My intent is to provide you with the knowledge and understanding that I have of the issues involved to help you make a more informed decision for yourself. YouTube, alright, there's also a schism between YouTube's policies and copyright law. Copyright law is pretty well defined, and the fair use clause pretty well understood in terms of U.S. courts. YouTube's policies are not based on the law itself, but their own interests. Their primary motive is profit, or preserving the potential for future profit. With this in mind, the main thing they want to avoid is losing money to lawsuits. This means that they're going to lean towards corporations rather than individuals, because corporations have more resources to undertake lawsuits. They're going to lean in favor of copyright holders who claim infringement rather than people who make derivative works. Specifically because the last thing they want is to lose money to getting involved in lawsuits, etc. And I've covered this pretty thoroughly in a video I did a year ago to this month. A video entitled YouTube Ban Happy, Ben Sad. And I'll put a link in the description. I should talk about copyright law, courts. Okay. The copyright law started to protect creators of content from corporations that might, got lost in my sentence. I apologize. Let me just start over. Copyright law started during the Industrial Revolution. It was largely based in response to the creation of the printing press. Before this, books were copied often by hand, which was a very time-intensive process. So it was hard to profit just from copying a work. However, with the onset of the printing press, they realized a danger to authors, primarily, was their concern at the time. An author who puts a lot of creativity and time into creating a work could be completely undermined by a corporation that owns the means to reproduce it. If they just started creating works that were made by people still alive trying to profit from them, with their printing press, there'd be no way authors could compete. And printing presses would just start printing whatever sold with no royalties being paid to the creators of that content. So that's the origins of the law. It's kind of interesting now that that's almost inverted. Now it's perceived as protecting corporations who have purchased the rights to copy a work from, anybody who wants to create derivative works from it. And that's not the intent. It's important to understand that the perceptions have been altered since the start. So I'm going to be talking about law quite a bit. If your primary interest is not getting involved in a lawsuit, not having content ID matches occur, not running the risk of your video being removed, the simple recommendation I have for you is don't use any sources that are copyrighted. That's simple. And I personally consider it short-sighted because we live in a world where the vast majority of what we interact with, what we witness, what surrounds us is created. The television, the newspaper, the internet, these are all creative works. We're no longer out just in nature with flowers and birds as their inspiration. Most of our inspiration comes from other works of art. So it's not surprising that we'd want to use some of these sources of input for our own goals of expressing ourselves. Okay. My second recommendation, therefore, is find alternate sources that do what you want it to. That is, if you're making a video and you think, what song would be perfect here, take a moment to think about or to pursue other options that might work as well. If you can find somebody whose permission you can acquire, preferably in written form, but if it's a friend, that's probably not necessary. I say too much. And I edit too little. After that, another alternate source you could find is things in the public domain. Songs older than a certain amount of time, but any works of art older than a certain amount of time are no longer protected by copyright, and you can use them freely. It's 50 years for some types of work, 100 years for another. Some things are based on like 50 years after the death of the creator. That all gets fuzzy, but there are alternate agreements like Creative Commons, which I'll put a link to, where people have agreed you can use this work as long as you reference me. There's different agreements, but these are things you can use more freely with the assurance that you won't be sued. Now, if you want to use a specific work that is claimed by copyright, here's another recommendation. check whether what you want to use is owned by Warner Music Group. As far as I've seen, they're responsible for the vast majority of claims of infringement. Works that are under an independent music label, they're going to have a much more open stance. Warner wants to control completely what they own to maximize profit. Smaller labels will recognize that any attention they get is actually promotional, and especially if you say where you're pulling your sources from, it's going to be a lot more favorable. Alright, I'm going to go into... I'm going to check the time.